Alright, slightly basic setting for this one. I am in the middle of moving house, but we need to talk about the All-Stars. The greatest atmosphere I've ever experienced was at the 2022 All-Stars game, and that's saying something. I've been lucky enough to attend matches in Europe's biggest soccer leagues. I've attended Formula 1 races, I've attended Origins, Grand Finals, you name it, I've been there. But the All-Stars in 2022 beats all of them. It's easily one of my favourite fixtures of the year. It's just such a fantastic concept. I love the fact that it showcases rugby league's deep connection with these two rich and vibrant cultures. But at the same time, it's a fixture that in recent years has left me very frustrated because what we see on field in terms of players that are taking part always falls so far short of what we could be seeing. With a number of high-profile players every year electing not to take part despite being able to. Unfortunately, it's become a very good case study of how the way that we treat club footy versus rep footy is backwards and damages our sport. I've been waiting almost a year to make this video, so without further ado, let's get into it. There's this quote that I invented. It's very profound and I use it a lot. It says, "You'll never make the game international with Manly, Warringah, Canterbury, Bankstown and Parramatta." What it means is that our NRL clubs, as much as we love them, have no global significance. Even those place names, Manly, Warringah, Canterbury, Bankstown and Parramatta, have very little significance outside of Sydney. I'll give you an example of where I'd use the quote. So, the NRL right now are in a strategic position where they're trying to gain a foothold in the American sports market, which I think is a really good thing to do. Good on them. But to get new people through the gates or watching the screens, you have to give them a link, a connection, something that they're familiar with that they can then latch onto. Very, very few people will take a chance on something completely new when they don't have that connection. And frankly, none of them know what a St. George Illawarra is. You know what they probably have heard of though? Aboriginal and Maori culture. That in itself is a link that could get those new people watching. In the same way that a foreign viewer might watch Fiji versus Samoa or Australia versus England because they know what those two teams represent. That's my reasoning when I say that as a game, we damage ourselves every time we prioritize a club game over a representative game. And yeah, the NRL All-Stars fixture has unfortunately developed into the primary example of that. Despite the fact that it has the potential to be one of the most high-quality, attractive games to watch on the whole calendar. And if you don't believe it could be that good, let me prove it to you. I'll start by saying that in preseason it can be a little bit difficult to get exact information on injuries and availability, but even being super conservative and only naming players who are unsuspended and currently participating in full-time training, I've been able to come up with these two teams. Straight up, you'll notice the sheer star power of these two teams. I'll start by highlighting the spines because traditionally in rep footy, the spines are where the weaknesses are. But both of these two spines are Origin quality. Absolutely no doubt about it. Every single one of those spine members who is eligible to play Origin has played Origin. And the only two that haven't, which is Jerome Hughes and Jeremy Marshall-King, are absolute shoo-ins for the New Zealand national team. Other guys who've played Origin here, you've got Kotoni Staggs, Selwyn Cobbo, Ruben Cotter, David Feeder and Dane Gagai. That means already, straight off the bat, a third of the players who'd be participating in this fixture have been Origin representatives. And of course that's particularly impressive given that one of these teams is representing New Zealand. You wouldn't inherently expect them to have any Origin representatives. Focusing first on this Maori starting side, every single one of those players is in the elite category in their position. Particularly looking at that forward trio of James Fisher-Harris, Joe Tarpany and Britton Nikora. And to be fair, Jordan Riki and Leo Thompson also have that kind of ability in them. Not to mention a back four of Wateni Selesniak, Gagai, Timoko and Warbrick. That is an elite backline that could go toe-to-toe with any other back four without too much trouble. It is such a good backline that I couldn't even fit Charnzik or Klukstad in there. And looking to the bench, when you've got explosive guys like Keanu Kinney and Jack Howarth coming off there, not only are you going to be an absolute handful, but you're going to be really entertaining to watch. Then the Indigenous Australian side, who are equally as good. You've got the attacking prowess of Alafiana Khan Pereira on one side with the physicality of Selwyn Cobbo on the other. and 2 very high quality centers in between them. The Indigenous forwards are historically never quite the same caliber as their Maori counterparts, but this pack is solid. Josh Curran, Ruben Cotter, David Fafita, Dylan Lucas, and Adam Elliott. Those are all good NRL players with a couple of stars in there. They would well and truly hold their own and lay enough of a platform for that superstar spine to do its thing. Especially when you get to inject the electric Jaden Campbell into the mix at some point during the game. And not to mention, this Indigenous side is without Latrell Mitchell, Cody Walker, Josh Adokar, Ezra Mam, and Jermaine Hopwood through injuries and suspensions, so it could be even better. I won't say this is an Origin caliber fixture, it's not quite there yet, but I'll tell you what, it is only one step underneath that at its best. It's a matchup that would showcase an incredibly high level of rugby league. Imagine getting to watch these two sides go at it every preseason. Instead though, with the teams this year, we're getting this. Now I will say, despite all those changes that you just saw happen, these two sides are among the stronger All-Star teams we've seen named in recent years. I've seen fans read through these team lists and get excited about this year's game, which is brilliant. That's exactly what I want, but it's only because no one's ever published these lists. The vast majority of people don't realize how good this fixture could be. Now, I don't want to disparage any of the players that are named here. In fact, I want to do the opposite. I want to praise them for making themselves available. But objectively, this matchup isn't anywhere near what I just showed you guys. It never really has been, and I've spoken to a number of fans across the years who are growing increasingly frustrated with it. They're losing faith in this fixture, and to be honest, I don't blame them. And looking at the withdrawn players themselves, it's rough to single one out, but I'll go with Nicho Hynes. I am an absolute Nicho Hynes fanatic, but he said he can't play in this game because he has to travel to Vegas. But the fixtures are over 2 weeks apart, and you've got the likes of James Fisher-Harris and Charles Klugstad playing in this game who will also be playing in Vegas, so I don't entirely believe that it was impossible for Nicho to play the All-Stars. With that said though, this video isn't an attack on players, it's an attack on the power dynamics that exist within rugby league. For years now, and this is true, coaches and clubs have pressured players not to play in the All-Stars fixture. Brandon Smith said it when he first signed with the Roosters, that Trent Robinson, who's known to be one of the most internationally oriented people in the game, asked him not to play in the fixture so that he could focus on preseason for his club. Now, I don't doubt for a second the passion that a guy like Brandon Smith has for his Maori culture, but when your coach expressly asks you to do something like that, who would go against the coach's wishes? Why as a game do we allow a power dynamic like that to exist, where a star player having another week of preseason is valued more highly than that player being in camp all week, promoting the game and playing in the most culturally rich fixture that the rugby league calendar has to offer? Which of those two outcomes do you think the sport of rugby league receives a greater benefit from? It's obviously the All-Stars. Relying on the goodwill of clubs to release their players to play in this fixture clearly hasn't worked. The NRL need to tighten their leash and enforce their position as this league's governing body. The NRL CEO Andrew Abdo has to make a decision. Is he looking out for the interests of his clubs or the interests of rugby league? Because those two things clearly don't always line up with each other. And I do understand that preseason is the most physically demanding part of the whole year. There will be players with very valid injury concerns, but for it to be such a high volume of players year after year is simply not plausible. And I'm pretty sure you'd agree that if it was round one, those guys will be playing for their clubs. So once again, why do we treat regular season club games as superior to representative games? This fixture could be an absolutely tremendous asset to our sport, and it's about time that we finally made that happen. So what do you think of the All-Stars fixture? Do you agree with me, or do you think that club footy should be superior to rep footy? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.